TL11 Elite?
No.
Okay.
What I like is the car can do, but in a friendlier manner.
Okay, all right.
That car was almost like a technology play to say, like, we can do this, we can put it in production, it has a warranty, it's all there for if somebody's proud to own a Chevrolet Camaro. This car, I think we took that in the mindset, but it needed to be the refined version of that, but still have ultimate capability. And I'm very confident we succeeded.
So before we get into everybody's favorite thing, the sound, the emotional part of the experience of the engine, exhaust, intake, we have to talk about cooling because that's a huge part of making this all work. So what's been changed from the Stingray to make this more functional?
Okay. Yeah, we have approximately 50% more cooling capacity in this car than the Stingray. Necessarily needed. And so comparing to the Z51 is probably the best starting point. So we've added a central radiator that is a heat exchanger that handles the high temp cooling circuit, and that works in conjunction with the two outboard ones that are there on all C8s. And then in the back, in the quarter panel inlets, we have as standard air or a water to oil cooler for the engine and a water to oil cooler for the transmission.
And then there's also a block mounted oil cooler as well, supplemental.
It is, yeah. It's about huge, about 12 by 12,
huge.
right under
That's
here.
all you need to know.
Yeah. It's about huge, and it does a phenomenal job. One thing about this car is our oil temp, sump temp bogey is lower than we've ever done, and it's required for the amount of hardware that we rely on oil pressure on this engine.
Transmission. It's a carryover part. This is a Tremec unit. And is the tuning of the transmission or the gear ratios been changed?
Sort of.
Okay, all right.
The tuning is definitely different to deal with the different engine characteristics. We have a high revving, high power band engine, and the lower torque at the lower RPM. We've changed the final drive on this compared to the Stingray. And then there are a few more cut clutch plates to deal with the capacity. And then the cooling and lube management has been improved as well. So you can't see it, but there's an added volume of capability under the trans to give it a little more capacity for the high cornering forces this generates, so you don't starve it.
Sound. Let's get to it before we get this thing out on the track.
You could spend a day on this.
I'm sure you could. And if all you have to do is take a look at the exhaust and some of the diagrams of this thing, and you're going to know just by eyeballing, even if you don't know anything, there's a lot of complication to this. So tell me about the length of time of development for this, and were there changes made during development, and how did you approach this?
With the exhaust on this car, we spent years trying to elicit the sounds we wanted from the flat plane crank. Different firing order completely, the way it breathes, the way it interacts. The header design was settled long ago. That's something we had to decide very early, right? The design of that was done in a way to enhance the sound and make the firing pulses reach together at the end. The big thing, obviously, visually, is it went from the outboard exit exhaust, like the Stingray, to the center. And so you may think, well, that was C5, C6, C7 had center-mounted exhaust, right? That's just a nod to those, and it really was never about that. What this is all about is, with a flat plane crank engine, you can have undesirable buzz or four-cylinder sound, because it's essentially two four-cylinders joined together. And so that produces a second-order firing sounds or sound waves that aren't what we want. We want to highlight fourth, second, sixth, 10th, tend to give boom and buzz, right? Not what you're looking for in this car.
So just so you understand, like, these are the pleasant frequencies to the ear, not the ones that are like nails on a chalkboard that you're trying to read.
Correct. Yeah, like every Corvette before this is heavy fourth order. People love it. It's revered, and we know it. So with a flat plane, inherently, you can have high second that you don't want. It's just the way the firing orders work. So by moving the pipes next to each other rather than out here, they cancel out of phase. So when this bank fires and then this bank fires, they're perfectly 90 degrees out of phase, and they're right next to each other. So one thing unique to people may not know is on the C6 and C7, when we started with the valve exhausts, the loud path was outboard of the 4 pipes. The loud path on this one is input, so they're right next to each other, and the quiet path is outboard. So that is the physics behind why we went to center. It cancels, but then it also projects.
And acoustic tuning of that, like how much work went into it. Clearly use sound measurement tools to look at different frequency ranges. And I saw as a part of your presentation, just even the placement of removing the finishers from the actual exhaust pipes and where you put it in the finishers versus inboard or outboard, or changes, amplifies certain frequencies or unwanted frequencies. So it seems like that was a lot of work. How long did that take to get this?
That was a lot of work. So we knew from the outside of the car was awesome. How do we get that inside when you've got a trunk that blocks sound waves? There's no direct path to put your eyeball on from the sound of the pipe to the back of the cockpit. So the invention of the reverse megaphone that you mentioned really was the secret there. So we have wonderful math modeling tools to know how to where to place the pipes so that the sound reflects rearward. You'd almost think you wanted to reflect outward, right, for everyone to hear. This was all about capturing waves, sound waves, bouncing them back towards the cockpit.
Okay. So what you're saying is when you buy this car, cut it off and just put some $500 exhaust on it, it's going to make it way better.
I'm not saying that. No. I feel like we have extracted as much as we can from this. I will be interested to see if people think they can do better. But when you look at it, it's essentially a 3-inch straight pipe from the back of the catalyst, and there's not a lot of goodness to gain. So we use the muffler to enhance it, but when those valves are open,
it's wide open.
There's hearing LT6.
I think it's time. I really appreciate everything you've turned in. We could go on for hours with this, believe me, but I think it's time to get this thing out on track and really experience all the work that went into it.
There was a time when living with a progressive disease like ADPKD meant waiting for the day. Thankfully, those days may be over.
I don't want to hear any more talking, Jack. I don't want to hear the radio again. I don't want to hear Doja Cat. Just give me some exotic, sweet American engines. That's the noise I wanted, Mark. Here's the important test. Yeah, here we are. Important test. We're in the corner. This is the jack test here. Of course, Jack picks the poverty spec Z06 so he can go sideways everywhere. So we're not in a Z07 equipped car. We're in the Z06, the standard car. This is a 3LZ. It's fully loaded. Does not have the carbon ceramic brakes. It doesn't have the Sport Cup 2s, but it still has this engine. And listen to it. Well, we spent 2 days talking about the engine and how amazing it is. So, yeah, it's pretty special. And I think it's even more special the fact that you hear this thing start and you're like, wait a second, that sound's coming from this. I can't think of any other American engine ever, and while recent memory, that ever compares to this.
This thing sounds like magic. It sounds incredible. I will